Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, each week on our entertainment show, we feature a brand new TV series or movie that's debuting in here in Ireland and UK. And this week, it's all over the place, really, all over Ireland and UK on Sky Atlantic. We're three episodes in. Everyone's glued to their TV screens. If you are a fan of Game of Thrones, then this is up your market. It's the prequel to Game of Thrones. It's the one and only House of the Dragon. And we're delighted this evening to be joined by one of the guest stars of the smash hit TV series, Graham McTavish. He plays the role of Ser Harold Westerling, one of the King's Guards to young Princess Rhianna, Milly Alcock's character. First of all, Graham, are you sort of blown away by all the media buzz, all the hype that House of the Dragon is getting so far? It's really taken off.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to take it in, really. It's hard to absorb the kind of numbers that they're talking about. I was saying this to somebody earlier that, you know, I grew up as an actor in theatre, and, you know, if you played to a full house of 600 people, you were lucky. So the idea of something that you're in being seen by millions and millions and millions of people at the same time it's too difficult to comprehend. But no, completely delighted, and it's exceeded any hopes that we may have had. So it's wonderful.
And Graham, when did you realise that obviously anything to do with Game of Thrones is going to be a smash hit anyway? But when did you realise, obviously you've been in a big franchise TV like Outlander before, when did you realise that, wow, we're onto something special here? Was it maybe a week or two into sort of filming that you realised yourself, yeah, this is going to be good?
I mean, it's a funny thing. You never really know. Yeah, I mean, you would think, oh, of course, you know, Game of Thrones was a popular and successful show. It's inevitable that something like House of the Dragon would also be successful. But in reality, it can also go the other way. It really can, because there is also a huge expectation from the existing fandom, and that was the same with Outlander. You had all of these people who loved the books. It was the same with The Hobbit, all of the people that loved Lord of the Rings. So you carry with you somewhat of a duty and a responsibility to those people, but at the same time you have to kind of park that to one side when you're doing it and actually just focus on the job in hand. And while you're doing it, while you're actually filming these things, you're not aware of how it may or may not be received. I mean, we knew, you know, individually in scenes, you know, scenes that have gone well, but you don't see the whole picture. You know the scripts, you've read all the scripts, but you're not privy to everything that's happening. So you're part, all of us, every person in that show is part of a much bigger picture. And it's only when that little kind of thing that you've been nurturing for, well, in this case, years, is finally put out into the world that you know whether you've done a good job or not. Unfortunately, we seem to have managed to do it.
And Graham, were you approached for the role of Ser Harold Westerling, or did you audition for the role?
Yeah, I had an interesting path to it. Ryan Condal, who is the writer and co-showrunner of House of the Dragon, is somebody I've worked with twice before. I did a pilot for Ryan for NBC nearly 10 years ago now, which is when he first contacted George R.R. Martin. He went to visit him. And then subsequently, I did a series called Colony for Ryan. And Ryan, I remember we met for lunch in LA, and we were very, very excited about this idea that he'd had of writing a prequel to Game of Thrones. And this was, I mean, at least 5 or 6 years ago that we were talking about this. And so he wanted me involved very early on. He talks about me as his kind of lucky charm because I've been in everything that he's written. But it was, so no, I was there from pretty early on, actually, in terms of being involved. I didn't know what part, but I knew that I was going to be in it.
And Graham, just tell me, I know it's a massive production team on set in terms of House of the Dragon, but what would a working week look like for you in terms of a Monday when you come in terms of a table read? Are we talking 12, 13-hour days, and are we talking maybe 10 to 12 days of maybe shooting and then maybe location shooting and block shooting to produce one episode of House of the Dragon?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with House of the Dragon was that because of the scheduling and because of locations, we actually began by filming episode 7. So we started well over halfway through the story in terms of all of the characters. So we started with the older versions of Rhaenyra and Alicent. All of that was shot before anything else. And then we had to go back and start filming earlier episodes. So that was quite strange. But a typical week, well, I mean, you work generally, you do 5-day weeks, sometimes 6 if you're really being pushed. If you do location, you go away for blocks of time for location. So you'd go away for a week or 10 days, and then you'd just be gone. You wouldn't be going backwards and forwards, really. The rest of it was all at Leavesden Studios, just outside London. And a typical day, depending if you were in the first scene of the day, I would be picked up at maybe 5-ish in the morning. Then you'd get in, you'd have to go through makeup, costume, then you get ready, you rehearse, and then the crew arrive normally at 8, and then everything gets set up, and then you begin and you work your way through it. So a scene, for instance, there's a big scene, a wedding scene, and that one scene took 2 weeks to film. So, because there are so many angles that you have to cover and so many characters that you have to cover and the stories that they are all telling, it's a slow, laborious process. And the fascinating thing about television and film almost more so, is that for something that takes an hour and a half to watch, you could have spent 3.5 months filming it. And it's a weird sort of contraction of everything into this little block of time that the audience gets to see.
And Graham, I was just recapping there an episode there one today in terms of, and what blew me away straight away were the joust scenes to begin with. And I do believe that in terms of the stunts team that sort of worked on House of Dragon, did you ever get to witness sort of the stunts? And did you have a sort of stunt double yourself for any of the scenes? Or
I certainly witnessed the stunts, some of those jousting scenes. Yeah. No, I witnessed all of that. And I cannot overstate how incredible those people are. Personally, I mean, I've done a lot of what you would describe as stunts in my career, but nothing like that. I mean, those people are traveling in armor at speed towards each other, and they might be breakaway lancers, but nevertheless, you're going to be impacted. At the closing speed of that is probably 40 to 50 miles an hour once they get up to full speed. So you're getting hit really hard, and they did it over and over and over again. No, I have nothing but admiration for stunt people. I've just worked with a whole new stunt team on The Witcher, and they're incredible people. They really are. I'm glad they do it.
And Graham, in terms of the first episode, we see this sort of dare I say, successor to the sort of throne sort of being played out. And we see in terms of so many concepts, from childbirth to death, we see sex scenes, we see we see death, we see blood, gore, lust. So there's so many sort of, say, adult themed concepts running through what is a sci-fi fantasy sort of fictional sort of world all the same. Yeah. So it does appeal to people of all generations and not geared to a 17 to 34-year-old audience, really.
No. I mean, as a parent myself, I would be loath to let, young children watch this. I mean, I really would. And I think that I'm pretty sure that HBO do a warning, a parental warning for this sort of thing, because there is some very, very explicit stuff. The violence, etc., is that childbirth scene particularly is. I mean, the first time I saw that is just horrific. But these are themes within the world created in that story, and it's a brutal world where a family, in this case the Targaryens, living in peace. They've had peace for decades, actually sort of implode from within. They destroy themselves. They fight amongst themselves. I sometimes compare it to, The Godfather with dragons. It's just a kind of, it's a family-centered drama. And
mafia type based, yeah.
A little bit, there are power struggles, there are hidden agendas, there's all sorts of stuff going on. And listen, all families have, to some degree, not this kind of stuff, but nobody's necessarily going around murdering each other. But there are rivalries within families, there are jealousies, there are resentments, and so those are things that anybody can identify with. In this world, in the world of House of the Dragon, they're just expanded upon and exaggerated hugely for great dramatic effect.
And Graham, can you tell us a bit about your character, Ser Harold Westerling? Is he very much that sort of bodyguard type in terms of young Princess Rhianna, the one that dodges in front of her, takes the bullets or takes the sword, die in his shield type of character? Or what type of role does he play and develop?
Yeah, he's the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. So the Kingsguard are almost sort of a warrior monk brotherhood. So they forsake marriage, relationships, they forsake land and money, and they devote themselves entirely to the family. So it's this sort of, we're bound together in this extraordinary way for life. And while it is possible to retire as a Kingsguard, generally you just die at your post. But in the case of Ser Harold, his relationship, particularly with Rhaenyra, is that she is, he has no children. And she is the nearest thing that he has to a daughter. Not that he would presume to treat her as a daughter, but he has that sort of avuncular, familial relationship with her. He loves her. He loves her as a guardian or an uncle would love somebody. And he protects her. He wants to protect her. He wants her best interests at heart. And crucially, I think, especially for Ser Harold, who isn't somebody who's given to admiring many people in Westeros. They're a nest of vipers, really, most of them. They're pretty appalling people. Well, with the exception of Viserys. Viserys is a decent man. But what he sees in Rhaenyra is that he sees an honest person, an honest, decent person, and that really resonates with him. And that's another reason why he cares for her so much. His relationship with Daemon, played by Matt Smith, is the opposite. While he has a professional obligation for looking after him because he is a prince of the Targaryen family, he intensely dislikes him. He doesn't trust him, and the crucial thing as well about Ser Harold is that he is privy to everything that occurs. So he knows all of these hidden agendas. He knows what people are saying. He knows what they're plotting. He can see it in plain sight. And I think that's what makes him, for me, a very interesting character.
And I just have 3 more questions for you, Graham. Graham, in terms of the 10 episodes, obviously, in season 1, and you mentioned there some scenes could take roughly 2 to 3 weeks to shoot. So I imagine in those 10 episodes, was it over a year, basically, given that the amount that was shot into? That's why we're looking at 17 episodes in season 1.
Sure, it was a year. It was definitely a year with the odd break. And there was just some pickups that needed to be done of a few scenes, but I mean, which is normal. But yeah, it was a very, very long time commitment.
Okay. And Graham McTavish, have you ever obviously been in Scotland? You've obviously graced our shores here in Ireland, I bet you, a few times. And what are your memories of coming to Ireland? And when was the last time you were here?
I mean, one of my dearest friends lives in Dublin, actually, a lovely Irish actor called Michael Glenn Murphy. He and I go way, 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 way back. But I came to Ireland. My best work memory of Ireland was coming to do a play called The Starving that was written by Andrew Hines. We performed that at Andrews Lane Theatre, which I actually think doesn't even exist anymore. sadly.
No, I don't think so in Dublin.
No, no. But it was a one-man show in which I played two characters who were linked by a third unseen character. And it was one of the most demanding but rewarding experiences of my professional life. It was fantastic. And I lived, where did I live? Stony Batter, I think it was. I lived in a little house there, a little terraced house, while I was rehearsing. And the director would allow me to go out while I was learning the lines. He would allow me to go out on a Thursday night with him. We'd go out together and have some Guinness. But the rest of the time, I just had to be learning lines. I was like a monk. But it was a fantastic, fantastic experience. A great, 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 great play. Yeah.
And Graham, just over to you for the final 30 seconds now. You might enlighten all our audience here in Ireland why they should tune into episode 4 of House of the Dragon. Coming next week on Sky Atlantic here in Ireland.
Yeah, why should they tune in? Well, obviously to see me. Obviously, I mean, that would be a huge reason. But no, the main reason is that this is, as I've said, a family drama that appeals to everybody that you can identify with, but elevates it into a world of fantasy, and it has dragons. I mean, what else do you need, really?
On that note, from Ser Harold Westerling himself, the one and only Graham McTavish, an absolute pleasure to have you with us this evening to talk about House of the Dragon, obviously on debuting in HBO in America, Sky Atlantic here in Ireland. 3 episodes in, an absolute pleasure so far, a great series, and no doubt we'll be back for future seasons to come. But for the moment, Graham McTavish, take care, God bless, and stay safe.
And to you, thanks very much. Thank you.
Cheers.